Hello, everybody. Welcome back. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. We're going to be reading, I think it is P, Q, and R, going through the appendix with all of our archetypes and the definitions. So let's go ahead and move along. So we're starting off with the letter P. I think that's, we left off at LMN, I think. I don't think there was, networker. That was where we left off. So now we're skipping straight to P. We didn't have any O's. O was Olympian, which was bunched up with athlete, which I covered obviously in the first video. So we're skipping to P. And the first one we have is pioneer, otherwise called or otherwise known as the additional archetypes, which I will give to you. Explorer, settler, pilgrim, innovator, and entrepreneur. The pioneer is called to discover and explore new lands, whether that territory is external or internal. The passion to explore the South Pole is as much a pioneering endeavor as the passion to explore medicine or spiritual practice. Even initiating new fashions, art, music, literature, or business ventures may qualify as expressions of this archetype. The core ingredient is innovation, doing and creating what has not been done before. To consider this archetype seriously as one of your 12, your life must be characterized by a need to step on fresh and undiscovered territory in at least one realm. The shadow pioneer manifests as a compulsive need to abandon one's past and move on, just as the Don Juan or femme fatale pioneers ever knew their ever new conquests. Those who are forced out of their homeland and made into unwilling pioneers, like the Jews of the diaspora, Africans bound into slavery, Tibetan Buddhists, or Native Americans, should not be included under the shadow, however. Now some films that relate to this archetype. Debbie Reynolds in How the West Was Won, Jean Arthur and Van Heflin in Shane, Judy Garland in The Harvey Girls, Jackie Robinson in The Jackie Robinson Story. Television, Wagon Train, Bonanza, Little House on the Prairie. Fiction, Last Horizons by James Hilton and O Pioneers by Willa Cather. And just as a reference for you, when I say fiction, she's talking about books that are fiction, not films, although some of them may have been made into films. She's talking about the book version. Religion or myth, we have Nana Ula, a seafaring pioneer who led his people on a voyage of 2,500 miles from Tahiti to Hawaii over 1,000 years ago. And Bodhidharma, the Buddhist patriarch who carried the teachings from India to China and established the tradition that came to be known as Zen. Hagar, handmaiden of Abraham, who brought her son Ishmael to the Bekaa Valley of Arabia and established the Arab people. Now we have pirate or swashbuckler, buccaneer, privateer. Pirates were traditionally the thieves of the open seas, pursuing rich treasures and burying them in caves, thus creating archetypal legends around buried treasures within the caves of our inner being. Although pirates were bandits, for the peasant population, they symbolized freedom and the ability to strike back at the rich and aristocratic class who made their wealth from the labors of the poor. Modern pirates steal everything from intellectual property to information via the internet. It is tempting for us to steal another person's energy or creative wealth. The search for our own spiritual gold is a metaphor for coming of age in terms of spiritual awareness, by finding our own value rather than pirating others' wealth. And some films that represent this archetype. Errol Flynn in Captain Blood, Walter Matthau in Pirates, Robert Stevens as the character Henry Morgan in Pirates of Tortuga. Operetta, so an opera, The Pirates of Penzance by Gilbert and Sullivan. Fiction, The Count of Monte Cristo by Alexandre Dumas, one of my favorite top 10 books. And religion and myth, Fomorians in Irish Celtic mythology, a race of demonic prehistoric giants who pillaged Ireland from the sea. Now we have poet, and it says see also artist, which we've already covered. Closely related to both the author and the artist, the poet combines lyricism with sharp insight, finding the essence of beauty and truth not only in the epic affairs of humanity, but also in everyday acts and objects. Classic poetry extols momentous events and great deeds, and also expresses wonder at the hidden joys and sorrows that most of us might overlook. And although you don't have to be a published poet to have this as one of your 12 archetypes, you do need to be driven by the need and the ability to discover beauty in the people and things around you, and express it in a way that helps others see that beauty too. The shadow poet turns his gift for lyricism to negative or destructive effect, as in songs or poems written in support of military aggression or genocide. That's very specific. Films that represent this archetype. We have Glenda Jackson in Stevie, Philippe Noiret in Tu Postino, Sean Connery in A Fine Madness. Fiction, The Basketball Diaries by Jim Carroll, and that's the shadow aspect. And then in Religion and Myth, King David, ruler of Israel, credited with writing many of the Psalms. Orpheus, great musician and poet of Greek myth, capable of charming wild beasts. Then we have Bragi, in Norse myth, the god of eloquence and patron of poets. Finn Mac Cumhale, legendary Irish hero and leader who was also greatly skilled as a poet. When I was in elementary school, there was a poetry writing contest, and I submitted mine, and what they did was they took all of the winners and they made a book, and it was just for elementary kids, and I actually got in, and comparing it to all the other kids, they wrote about their dogs, sunshine, the food, whatever, vacation, and I wrote about tears. It was so depressing. Someone in my family had just passed away, and I was there when it happened, and I think that was a bit of a traumatic experience, but I wrote about tears, and comparing it and looking back at it now, it speaks volumes to me of where I was and what that sort of did to me. All right, priest or priestess, minister, rabbi. The ritual that establishes the unique role of the priest is ordination, the official capacity to facilitate the making of spiritual vows, commitments made to divine authority. Ordination or similar rituals of initiation allow the priest, rabbi, shaman, or medicine man to serve as a vehicle or spiritual channel of energy for others. Many of those devoted to spiritual life, such as monks and nuns, do not facilitate the ritual exchange of vows and spiritual energy. Ordination also empowers the priest to convey to the public the power of sacred teachings, rituals, wisdom, morality, and ethics of each spiritual tradition. Because of these profound spiritual responsibilities, the ordained are expected to represent the teachings through personal example. And so the shadow side of this archetype manifests through the inability to live according to those teachings, especially in lapses of personal morality. The breaking of vows while conducting vows for the community or using ordained authority to control the population for personal gain has also been the dominant expression of this archetype's shadow. From the corrupt temple priests of the ancient Egyptians to the scheming, power-hungry prelates and popes of medieval Christianity, shadow priests have interfered in secular politics to gain church power, extorted money from people who need food and shelter, just to build larger temples and cathedrals, held back women's rights and gay rights, and misused the people's trust to satisfy their own sexual needs. That's very true. One thing I have noticed with churches in particular, I follow somebody that does these road trips. He goes to these dying ghost towns or towns that are losing population, basically takes you through the town, the main part, the downtown and residential areas, and then gives you the census numbers, which is what their population is, what it used to be, how many Black people, white people, Native American people, what the average income is, how much poverty is there, and crime. And then he'll give you a little bit of history. And it's every time, the houses could be shacks falling to the ground, yet there's always the churches that are these big, beautiful, expensive structures in a town that's historically known for poverty. And I find that quite interesting that no expense is spared for the church or the cathedral or the temple or whatever they want to call it, but what's around it certainly doesn't fit. Anyways, films. Montgomery Clift in I Confess, Carl Malden in On the Waterfront, Don Murray in The Hoodlum Priest, Richard Todd in A Man Called Peter, and Richard Burton in Beckett. Fiction, Diary of a Country Priest by George Bernanos. Drama, Mass Appeal by Bill C. Davis, Murder in the Cathedral by T.S. Eliot. I think those are books also. Religion and Myth, Eleazar, the first high priest of Israel. Pythia, priestess of Apollo's temple at Delphi, who went into trance and made oracular pronouncements. Apetiquil, a high priest of the Incan moon god. Hungan, a Haitian priest of Vodon. Ishkara, priestess of Ishtar and Babylonian goddess of love. Kokopelli, in Zuni lore, a priest who brings rain to the people. Utnapishtim, or Zayasudra, in Babylonian or Sumerian myth, the priest-king of Shuruppak, who is warned by the gods of a coming deluge and builds a large ark to preserve human and animal life. Now we have prince. The connotations of certain words is as significant as their literal meaning in determining the nature of an archetype. Our word prince comes from Latin roots meaning first or chief, and the word was originally applied to the ruler of a principality or the son of a sovereign. But we often use the term today for anyone preeminent in his field, or for any generous individual. The adult fairy tale, The Little Prince by Antoine de Saint-Exupéry, further colored our image of the prince as an innocent, awestruck explorer. Yet the true prince is a ruler in training who is in service to the people he will rule. Whether that is a literal kingdom or a figurative or spiritual one, as with Prince Siddhartha prior to becoming the Buddha. The shadow prince can manifest as a young man with great feelings of entitlement, an heir apparent who uses his position solely for self-aggrandizement, or one who stands to inherit an evil empire and so takes on all the negative characteristics of the king, like the character of Michael Corleone in The Godfather. Machiavelli's The Prince was a guide to using a ruler's shadow power purely to advance one's career and self-interest, without regard for the need of others. Films, Laurence Olivier in The Prince and the Showgirl, Henry Fonda in The Lady Eve, Joseph Cotton in The Farmer's Daughter, Paul Newman in Cat on a Hot Tin Roof, Robert Redford in The Way We Were, and Anthony Perkins in Phaedra. Drama, Biff in Death of a Salesman by Arthur Miller. That's also a book. Fiction, The Prince and the Pauper by Mark Twain. Fairy tales, Sleeping Beauty, Cinderella. And in religion and myth, we have Rama, the prince of Ayodhya, seventh incarnation of Vishnu and the hero of the Hindu epic Ramayana. Shatuko, Japanese prince, deified as the reincarnation of Siddhartha the Buddha. Then we have Xochipilli, an Aztec god of flowers, maize, love, beauty, and song, whose name means flower prince. Beelzebub, originally the patron god of the Philistines and Canaanite, whose name meant Prince Baal, and demonized in the Judeo-Christian tradition as the Prince of Darkness. Prostitute, and it said see text for extended description. So we did go over prostitute, lumped up with, I think it was prostitute, I don't remember. There was 4 of them, but we went over those in a previous chapter, but now we're going to focus solely on it. All right, the prostitute. The prostitute archetype engages lessons in integrity in the sale or negotiation of one's integrity or spirit, due to fears of physical and financial survival or for financial gain. This archetype activates the aspects of the unconscious that are related to seduction and control, whereby you are as capable of buying a controlling interest in another person as you are in selling your own power. Prostitution should also be understood as the selling of your talents, ideas, and any other expression of the self, or the selling out of them. This archetype is universal, and its core learning relates to the need to birth and refine self-esteem and self-respect. Films: Jack Lemmon in The Apartment and Some Like It Hot, and also Save the Tiger and The China Syndrome, and lastly, Mass Appeal. Judy Holliday in Born Yesterday, Fred McMurray in Double Indemnity, Marlon Brando in On the Waterfront, and Drama, The Tragical History of Dr. Faustus by Christopher Marlowe. And I think that's a book. I think all of the ones that I've named as drama so far in every category are all books, along with fiction, if that's in the category. And Religion and Myth: O-Chun, Yoruba Orisha of love, marriage, and motherhood, who was forced for a time to become a prostitute to feed her children. Temple prostitutes in ancient Greece, Rome, Asia Minor, and India, women who engaged in public intercourse as a way of sympathetically activating the energy of fertility. Wow, I have to look into that. That's quite interesting. Now we're going to move on to the only Q, which is Queen or Empress. Besides having a rulership position in a court, the Queen represents power and authority in all women. Symbolically, her court can be anything from a corporation to her home. The image of the dark or evil queen has been largely represented by male authors of fairy tales and folklore as a wicked force. She may also be depicted as prone to hysteria and dark powers, influences, or plots, as in the story of Snow White. Gulliver's Travels presents a benevolent queen who rules the land of the giants, but that is a rare exception. That is very true. The queen is always portrayed as evil, cunning, conniving, manipulative, even in today's movies and TV series. The queen archetype is also associated with arrogance and a defensive posture that is symbolic of a need to protect one's personal and emotional power. Queens are rarely portrayed as having a trustworthy support system. Instead, they are lonely figures surrounded by a court filled with potential traitors, rivals, and backstabbers. Women who have identified themselves as queens in my workshops tend to have these qualities in common, suggesting that were it not for their aggressive personality characteristics, they would be vulnerable to others' control. Challenges related to control, personal authority, and leadership play a primary role in forming the lessons of personal development that are inherent to this archetype. The benevolent queen uses her authority to protect those in her court and sees her own empowerment enhanced by her relationship and experience, or relationships and experience. The shadow queen can slip into aggressive and destructive patterns of behavior, particularly when she perceives that her authority or capacity to maintain control over the court is being challenged. The Ice Queen rules with a cold indifference to the genuine needs of others, whether material or emotional. The Queen Bee is a mixed image. She has the astonishing ability to power the entire hive without leaving her chamber, yet at the cost of enslaving the rest of her community. And some films here. We have Joan Crawford in Queen Bee, Marlene Dietrich as Catherine the Great in The Scarlet Empress, Geraldine Chaplin in The Three Musketeers, Greta Garbo in Queen Christina, Judi Dench in Shakespeare in Love, and Kate Blanchett in Elizabeth. Drama: Antony and Cleopatra by Shakespeare, which is a book and a movie, I'm sure, by this point. Now, religion and myth. We have Mary, mother of Jesus, later elevated in Catholic tradition to Queen of Heaven. We have Mob, queen of the fairies, and often a trickster who steals babies, possibly derived from the Welsh Mab or Gaelic Maeve. We have Anatu, the Mesopotamian queen of the sky, Antiope in Greek myth, the queen of the Amazons, Marisha Ten, Japanese queen of heaven, and Guinevere, King Arthur's queen. Fairy tale, Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, and that would be showing the shadow aspect. Let's take a look at our R's. Okay, we only have a few R's here. The first one is rebel, or anarchist, revolutionary, political protester, nonconformist. Our images of the rebel may be too closely aligned with the cliches of youth culture to let us see the deeper significance of this valuable archetype. Whether politically inclined like Martin Luther King Jr., Betty Friedan, or Lech Walesa, or an artistic innovator such as Van Gogh, Joyce, or Coltrane, the rebel is a key component of all human growth and development. The rebel in a support group can be a powerful aid in helping the group break out of old tribal patterns. It can also help you see past tired preconceptions in your field of professional or creative endeavor. The rebel can also lead you to reject spiritual systems that do not serve your inner need for direct union with the divine, and to seek out more appropriate paths. The shadow rebel, conversely, may compel you to rebel out of peer pressure or for the sake of fashion, and so become mired in another manifestation of conformity. The shadow rebel may also reject legitimate authority simply because it is asking you to do something you find difficult or unpleasant. Be especially careful in evaluating your rebellious impulses. Even if the rebel is not part of your intimate circle of archetypes, you probably have it to some extent and should pay attention to its urgings. Films: James Dean in Rebel Without a Cause, Marlon Brando in The Wild One, Kirk Douglas in Spartacus, Sally Field in Norma Ray, Meryl Streep in Silkwood. Fiction: The Rebel by Albert Camus, and One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest by Ken Kesey. Phenomenal book, really good movie too. Rarely do I ever think the movie adds up to the book. There are a few that are really, really good, and that's one of them. Now, religion and myth. We have Iblis or Lucifer, and Iblis is the Muslim name, Lucifer the Christian name. It's a Muslim Christian belief, a rebellious angel who refused to worship Adam or acknowledge the supremacy of God. And in folklore and fairy tales, we have Jack and the Beanstalk and Peter Rabbit by Beatrix Potter. He's definitely the rebel that always goes and eats all of the farmer's cabbage and lettuce and does exactly what he's told not to do. Now we have rescuer, and it says, see also knight, healer, and hero. And by knight, I mean like knight in a shining armor, not like nighttime. In its empowered profile, the rescuer assists when needed, and once the rescue mission is accomplished, withdraws. A rescuer provides an infusion of strength and support to others to survive a difficult situation, crisis, or process that they lack the stamina or inner knowledge to maneuver through all by themselves. Unlike the knight to which it is related, the rescuer is more common among women, especially in its shadow aspect. I'm thinking like codependency. The shadow rescuer often surfaces through a romantic connection in which one party seeks to establish an intimate bond by lending emotional support, with a hidden agenda that assumes the rescued party will return the rescuer's romantic feelings. Such romances are destined to fail because the shadow agenda has to keep the rescuee in need of being rescued, lest the rescuer lose her significance. Healing and empowering the rescuer within is a common emotional challenge because being needed is essential to our nature. Most people can relate in part to the characteristics of this archetype, which somewhat parallel those of the knight, healer, hero, and even the servant. If you feel drawn to this archetype, be careful to compare the characteristics of those others before deciding to add the rescuer to your family. Films: Sigourney Weaver in Alien, Tom Hanks in Saving Private Ryan, and Jason Gedrick in Iron Eagle. Television: The Lone Ranger. religion and myth. We have Bidadari in Javanese myth, a lovely nymph who uses her knowledge of magic to rescue a hero from a dangerous situation and marry him. Lancelot, Knight of the Round Table, who rescues Guinevere, with whom he is having an affair, when King Arthur threatens to execute her for adultery. And Bran, in Welsh lore, a giant who rescued his sister Branwen from enslavement by her Irish husband. Okay, so that completes those 3 for our archetypal definitions. And in the next video, we will read S. We do have quite a few S. That's another, S and M seem to be the most. T, and we don't have any U, so I'll be skipping straight to possibly to V, or I may read V and W together since there are a lot of the archetypes that start with the letter S. So we'll see how that goes. All right, we're going to stop right there, and I will be posting the next set of 3 very soon. I tried to make a few of these in one day or in a matter of 2 or 3 days just to get them out to you. So I hope that you're finding these helpful, and I will see you all again soon. We will be starting chapter 6 very soon, which I am excited about because we're going to be talking more about the chakras. I love you all, and I will see you guys again for my next video. Take care until then. Bye-bye.